Hi, this is Elise Howard, and I was the main artist and level designer for Into the Canvas. So the whole thing kind of started with planning and designing, and I knew from the get-go that what I wanted was an elegant world with different environments made with different styles that the player could explore, and that was kind of the main idea that I had behind everything I made. So when we first started out, we were looking at more of a Mario type game with horizontal platforms you could jump on, and that idea evolved more into what we have now with the verticality and the exploration and collectible side of things, which is more like Hollow Knight. And so the art process kind of evolved with that, and when I got into making all of the art assets, I had a really fun time with the animations because I like animation, and I really enjoyed making the player characters animations because they're so fluid because they're an ink blob, right? Basically, and they transform with all of their animations, and I really loved making the jump animation and the attack animation and the death animation because the main character doesn't act like a real human would, and it's very weird and fluid and inky, and I just thought the main character fit really well with the ink world, which is the first world in the game. As far as the other worlds go, I wish I had spent more time on them. I wish I had spent less time on the ink world and maybe less time even on the main character, so I could have made more tiles for the paper and the watercolor world. I wish I had focused more on all of the medias and instead of jumping right into the ink one right away and spending a lot of my time on that. After I made all the art assets, I had to implement them into the game, which took a lot longer than I thought. I thought I'd just be able to click and drag everything into Unity, but it did not work like that. I spent so much time just adjusting the values of things and going back in and perfecting it. It wasted so much of my time, and then I had to design the levels, and that was so much more complicated than I imagined. I had to think about the player, and I'd never really done that before. I had to put myself in the player's shoes and imagine, what would I be thinking first time playing this game? And it took a really long time because I had to playtest it so much, and I had to kind of strike a balance between, is this too hard, or is this too easy? Is this too simple? And I've never really designed a game before, but I've played a lot of games, so I took a lot of notes from games I've already played, like Ori and the Blind Forest and Hollow Knight, in terms of platforming and how to get the player visually to understand how to do things without words, putting them through puzzles and making them learn through trial by error. And I think maybe even more so than art, I learned a lot about the game making process and how to design levels, and I never really thought about that before. So I really enjoyed that aspect of this, and I thought it was a really unique experience, and I really enjoyed it. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Logan. I was one of the main coders on the project. I took care of most all of the animation implementation, from the actual sprite sheets to making them move in game. I did all of the transportation with the both the room transitions and the angel teleportation system. I handled the collectibles, and then I did the battle room mechanics. And overall, I really think this project went great, both with what I did and with what everyone else did on their end. I think the way we all work together and what we've managed to accomplish is really good. Um, the game, the creation of this game was an arduous process, to say the least. There was a lot of times where we had to cut ideas we had just because we didn't have the time. We had to reduce the scope of our game immensely. The original idea being multiple fully separate worlds with individual levels on each, and we had to cut it down to be, technically speaking, really only 2 levels deep down, and just individual rooms with a continuous flow through them rather than like a level select screen or something. Um, I really am happy with how I've gotten the battle rooms set up and how they function. I think all of the menus in the game flow really well, and I'm happy with as well. Um, I think the things I disliked doing the most was when I had to implement the battle rooms, moving, or not even the battle rooms, but the menu system. After I had made it, I had to copy it into each room and then relink every link between the menus, all of the buttons had to be redone manually rather than just being saved when I copied them. And so it was just a very tedious process of relinking everything by hand. So that was definitely the worst thing I had to deal with this project. The animations as well, getting the timing of them correct and making sure they all played properly was very slow and tedious as well. But I think that says a lot that the things I disliked and struggled with the most were just annoying rather than anything difficult. I think we kept in mind what we were capable of very well, and the project turned out better because of it. There was never anything I felt was impossible to handle, and there was never any a point where I had to sit down and really struggle with things and hit my head against a brick wall until it worked. I definitely had to look up a lot about how Unity functions, and I've learned a lot now about how Unity works. I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned with this, is that there's a lot going on in Unity, but it covers a lot of ground. And even just with a 2D game like this, because Unity works with 3D games, and I cannot wait to one day delve into that. But just with a 2D game, there's a lot that it gives you the capabilities of. And so a lot of the times when something goes wrong, it's not because Unity doesn't have something to cover it, it's just because you aren't doing it properly. So it was a humbling experience in that sense as well. Overall, I think this entire project went phenomenally well. I'm really happy with how it turned out and how all of us worked together on it. And I think it's something I can be proud of now that it's finished.
I'm Dawson. I'm part of the Into the Canvas team for GED 200. I'm a programmer. I made the base movement initially, and then like our dash ability, and then the health and stamina systems more recently, and then like a lot of debugging and general code stuff in between that. I enjoyed the whole process, but I think if I had to do the art portion of it, I would have had a lot harder time because it seems like quite a bit more work overall, just like time-wise. Overall, I think I and our group kind of struggled with like fitting everything we wanted to in, and we kind of realized midway through that it's a lot more time consuming to do certain things, and you kind of have to limit what you want. I don't know, it gave us a more realistic outlook on how long things take. I think the one moment that sticks out is like super crummy is I deleted a file I had worked on for like 4 hours straight that day because I didn't know how GitHub worked. But yeah, I think I learned a lot about just general like code stuff in Unity and game engines overall, and also like how to have a little more realistic outlook on how long things take.
Hi, my name is Max Biggerstaff. I was a software developer for Into the Canvas. So working on Into the Canvas was pretty interesting because it was the first time that I worked in a, group to make an actual game. We would do these things called scrums, which is industry standard, I'm pretty sure, where basically we would get together every day and talk about like who needs to do what and what did we work on yesterday and when do we expect to get the next thing done. So yeah, we were able to divvy out labor that way, which was a new experience for me. In the game itself, I created scripts for a lot of things. I did health pickups for the player character. I coded the combat mechanics that the player character has. I also did all of like the sounds, so all of those royalty-free sound effects that were put in, those were done by me. The more interesting thing that I did though was I coded the scripts for all of the enemy AI. So the slimes, the bats, and the golems, that's all me. I did that by using state machines. If you don't know what state machines are, it basically has states, and those states are behaviors that the enemy has when they're in that state. Then you'll change from state to state and you'll have different behaviors. For example, you'll have an idle state. That happens when they run into a wall or a ledge and they just kind of like look around. Idle, of course. And then there's a move state. They're moving, of course. And then there's also triggers because they have a line of sight. So if the player goes into the line of sight, it'll change from whatever state that they're on to the player detected state. They'll pause for half a second, and if they're far away, they'll go into a charge state. They'll run at you. The speed is much faster than the regular movement state. And then they will attack you, which will go into the attack state, which basically just plays the attack animation, and in the animation there's an event trigger. And that event trigger will actually deal damage to the player if it's within the radius that I gave the attack. Basically, if you're in the attack radius, so if you're close enough. So yeah, it was pretty wild because the state machine is really big in terms of coding because it's about 30 plus scripts. Yeah, with all that, maybe a little bit more. I'd have to count. But it really helped me understand polymorphism in coding, how things inherit and how things talk to one another. I didn't really have that great of a concept on it. You know, we would talk about it in class, but actually sitting down and everything in the state machine inherits from something. There's two base classes, and that's the state and the entity. And everything else is inherited. So those 30, 40 scripts are all inherited from one another. And it made it a lot easier to code because once I had one down, I was able to quickly code another type of enemy. At least a lot quicker than it took me the first time. It still took me a while, but yeah, so overall it was a great learning experience. I really enjoyed working with Elise, Logan, and Dawson. They were all great. It was a really wholesome team. We have always been able to work together in a good fashion, I would say. A lot of good communication, not a lot of problems. So yeah, I'm thankful for the experience, and if you played our game, I hope you enjoyed it.